Hello, good morning. Welcome to QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Balde. And how was your weekend? I know mine was okay. I spent my weekend at home and, had a very good time with the family. Sometimes weekends are the only time when you'll be able to interact with your loved ones at home. And, I think it's important to give them that opportunity at least to feel your presence during the weekend. So I used my whole weekend to spend it with my kids, my wife, my parents, and, little brothers at home. So please send us a message on our social media handle and tell us how you spend your weekend. On the program, I'm with Mr. Mamadou Mboj. Mr. Mboj, how did you spend your weekend?
Because I always spend it. Nothing, there's hardly any variation. Come on, I'm of an age now when sort of what I aim for is equilibrium. So never too excited, never too sad. Same every week, really. But how often do you spend the weekend with your family?
Meaning one can predict how you
very
spend
predictable,
your
very predictable
weekend,
now. Nothing eventful, uneventful, perhaps just doing stuff. But the way I like it.
For me, most of the time I'm at home during weekends. I don't come to work on Saturday and Sunday, so I'm always at home watching TV, and also, interacting with the people at home, because that's the only time, they tend to feel your presence the whole day, from Saturday to Sunday. You understand? And it's important. It's their right for you also to be there for them, so that they can at least feel dad is around, bro is around, my son is here. So
I call it mental hygiene. It is hygienic. So it's for you psychologically to have that.
Good. Exactly. Mental hygiene, Mr. Mboj. Yeah, so we are honored to have the Minister of Environment, Honorable Rohi John Manjang, with us in the studios, and we'll be discussing the recently concluded COP29 in Azerbaijan, Baku. We call it Baku, right? It sounds like Bakau, sort of.
Well, I've heard some people say Azerbaijan. I'm like, whoa, who is that woman?
Yeah, so we are honored to have you here, Honorable Minister. Good morning.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here once again. And I greet my the audience out there, and send special thanks to the QTV management team for keeping our audience informed as to the day-to-day activities around us. So I'm happy to be here to share Azerbaijan and Baku's news with the public once again.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's good to have you here. We are always grateful, because anytime we call you to come on air, you are willing to come and at least share your area of work with us. So thank you very much once again. But let's start with the African Code. We engage the minister. I think this is not the first time we're engaging her on our African Code.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Mr. Boy, can you take us through?
Of course I can. It is not necessary to blow out other people's lantern to let yours shine. It is not necessary to blow out other people's lantern to let yours shine. It seems quite self-evident, isn't it? It seems sort of quite obvious, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Who do we, Minister?
Yes, so
let's start with the honors.
Mr. Boja, I keep saying this. You keep coming up with these big words from nowhere. And unfortunately, that I enjoy speaking Mandinka and Wolof than English. In the contrary, that you enjoy speaking English than other local languages.
Let's make it clear. The last time we sat this close, we were colleagues at QIT. We used to work together. We worked together for what, 8 years, something like that.
It has been so enjoyable. I want to say it has been so enjoyable. It turns to be the best of work that I had, and I learned a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you for keeping me around as a sister. On the proverb that you have just mentioned, I think for me it's just not to take this advantage upon others to get your way out, and I think that is it. Even in our own religion, English and Christian, we said you have to love your neighbor or a friend just like you love yourself. So wish them well and make sure that don't disadvantage them against yours. So for me, that's my interpretation. We have to make sure that we all move together. It has to be all inclusive when we are doing things, not to disadvantage our neighbors or friends or relatives or even our colleagues. So it's important that we move together as one people of one nation.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Absolutely, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't need to deem someone's light for you to sign. I mean, the river is wide enough for all of us to swim. You understand? Or to fish. You understand? So it's just a matter of being focused. I mean, at some point, society has gone to a level whereby, you know, we have to drag people behind. I mean, thinking that, okay, our success depends on how we drag this individual behind. Not considering each and every person you are gifted in a different way. So it's important for us to have that mentality, you know, of pushing people to be successful. I mean, once a person you push the person to be successful, you never know when and how you are going to be paid.
Absolutely. You don't have to bring people down for you to show that you're a big man. Life is not a sort of zero-sum game. Either you win or I win. It doesn't have to be like that. So yes, a more cooperative, as it were, attitude to life is much better. That's very true.
Exactly. So please send us your comments on our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and even our TikTok account, QTV Gambia. Honorable Minister, it's a pleasure once again to have you, and we are now going straight to the COP29 that was held in Azerbaijan, Baku. What were the Gambia's key takeaways at the COP29?
Thank you so much. Once again, I'm happy to face the audience on the most popular activity we have every year as the climate change activities. I've been in so many platforms so far, but I'm still not done. I know I have some other lists on my table, and I'll attend to it. COP29 or COP in general is an activity that we work through as a team. Gambia would have a specific need and attention to put forward, but we do this as a team and a block. In this case, we were teaming up as developing countries, but also within the limits of the least developed countries, because Gambia is working with these two, and then that's where I even found myself in the middle of two rivers. The developing countries wants me to join their team, and the least developed countries also wants me to join their team, because we were a few of the ministers, but at the least developed countries, I put my weight more, because that is where I suit more. As a least developed country who has been facing the consequences of climate change severely. So I decided to put more weight in supporting the agenda and the text of the least developed countries. So it was not only Gambia as a country, but it was a group. Because whenever we decide, you cannot put your special country's agenda, even though we see it coming up, developed countries and even some developing countries do that. But again, in this case, the Gambia has at least, we have our wish and we have our positions, which rightly fits into the position of the least developed countries and the developing countries. So we moved as a group.
Yeah, Mr. Wood.
Yes, so this is it. But before you went to COP29, obviously you were as a group. What were the expectations and how, in the end, the outcomes? Please balance out for us the expectations and, in the end, the outcomes.
As the Gambia into the developing countries and the least developing countries, we have our NDC, which is in no doubt different from other NDCs, because the global goal is to reach the 1.5 degree temperature reduction targets. And that is what has been guiding our NDCs, long-term strategies, our climate visions, and of course the coming Climate Change Act at the national level. So it's just maybe the team working as a group, but each of us have our country's position, which will eventually fuse into the bigger goal. So coming as a developed countries, developing a least developed country, we had our texts and we had our preparatory meetings, and we also have our positions clearly guided, but all these positions have been guided by science, but also with the global stock take that was recently produced by also guided by science. I will say for this COP29, it was more so a COP of finance, because the new collective quantified goal was supposed to replace the Copenhagen summit, that's the COP15 100 million target. So now we're shifting to a new target in terms of the quantum when it's come to the climate finance. So that was why we were more weighted into the new collective quantified goals. In a short, the NCQG. If you look at all the COP's negotiation, discussions, and attention and statement being made, is on the new collective quantified goals. Specific note to say that that was the only subject that we are discussing. We discussed about the global stocktake. We discussed about the global goal on adaptation. We discussed about the mitigation work program. We also discussed about the just transition and Article 6. These were all topics that we are also on the discussions. But key topic that has been the firebrand is the global goal on stocktake, the new collective quantified goals. Simply because finance would be the leading role in dictating the success of all these other teams, all the other sectors, all the other topics. So why we thought that we have to make sure that we get the finance template right and the text fitting and having everybody's need inclusive. Then we'll be able to now get the other texts or the other subjects flow in smoothly, because they need to be implemented, and they're going to be implemented in the absence of finance. So on the least developed countries, we have the finance team, which was also led by one of our own young lady, very active, very seasoned in terms of what was on the need to be done. So she was the one leading for the least developed countries on the finance. That's the new collective quantified goals. And we also have the global goal on adaptation, which I was I volunteered to take lead for the least developed countries at the ministerial level. It was also led by one of our young scientists, Dr. Famara Damfa. For the finance is Aissatou Kamara at the Ministry of Finance, Climate Change Secretariat. So this is, I'm happy to say this, simply because to say that Gambia has not been a small country when it's come to dealing matters of climate change. We have been on the lead, and we've been doing our utmost best to make sure that we support negotiations at the international levels. So this is, but if you may allow me to continue on specifically on the new collective quantified goals, what has happened? How were we able to manage to get our way out? And has it been on our part, or balancing, or on the negative notes? Yes, I would say that it has come at least with a, well, if I want to say failure, I will not be right. But again, we have not failed. But again, it has not met our ambitions. It has fallen short to meeting that.
And what do you think is the problem?
The problem is the lack of ambitions by the developed countries, is the willingness to support climate change adaptation measures, and of course to get us swing away in terms of solutions. Surprisingly, we have seen the mitigation work plan having the 1.5 degree temperature reduction absent. This is surprising, because all along years past, this has been what science has dictated and also guided us to follow. The 1.5 temperature reduction is a must to achieve. But you will be surprised to see that finally they managed, if I say they managed, is the powers that has dictated the decisions, managed to get this out of the way. Well, the text, if you look at the text, you read it critically, it was like going around in circle, but not touching the word itself, which we thought, hence this has been what we have been always mentioning. It has been our ring in terms of climate change. We cannot write any text without getting it bold, written for the world to see in black and white. So if they just, as the Wolof would say, garuwale, then ko garuwale. So if they don't speak straight to the word, we will say that they are trying to dodge responsibilities, and they are not trying. They are trying to go below the level of ambitions that we deserve, and we have been calling for. So that is the disappointing part of it. But we are able to get from one billion to 300 billion. One would say it's almost 200%. But again, it has fallen far short below the global quantum that the developing countries have been put on the table, which is the 1.3 trillion. So if you look at the 1.3 trillion, and now we get into ourselves the 300 billion, and even the 300 billion is yearly through 11 years, 2035, meaning it's not even a yearly package. And we have been saying the 1.3 trillion should be a yearly budget to finance climate change actions. So if you come up with 300 billion, and even with that gradual attainment here to 2035, we are saying maybe we are still within the level of the 100 billion. It's a strategy to move us away. So we have agreed, but we are little above the 100 billion, gradually mobilizing through it, going to 2035 to reach the 300 billion.
True.
But this is it, Minister. Earlier on you said that you wouldn't call it a failure, granted, though a good number of representatives there call it what, especially this number from 1.3 trillion to 300 billion, called it a joke, others called it an insult and the like. To many people, this was a bad cop. You normally have a good cop, bad cop. This was a bad cop. If Kyoto was a good cop, this is the bad cop. As you said earlier, the temperature 1.5 degrees Celsius that they are agreed, they jettisoned it. When it comes to the loss and damage fund, there isn't much going on there either. So it's been really, a lot of people left this COP disappointed.
A lot of challenges,
surely. If not failure, but there is a lot of disappointment with it. Wouldn't you say that, Minister?
Yes, I am not trying to shy away from the reality, but I also want to be genuine here, knowing fully well that negotiations and agreements don't happen under one cup. These negotiations they have a starting point, and it's a good starting point. This is the first time we are mentioning the 1.3 trillion. So if we have gone at least adjust from the 100, remember the 100 was staggering there since 2009, Copenhagen, that's the COP15. So if we have been moving around the 100 billion from 2009 all the way to here, and then now we've just started discussing about the new collective quantified goals. The topic has been opened. The willingness is there for us to argue and listen to each other. And then at least if the one step has been taken, as we say, to walk from a baby, it starts with one step. So that's why I'm saying that it's not completely a failure. We have started the real talk now to say that, look, the 100 billion is a joke. It's nowhere close to what we can do to achieve the 1.5 degree temperature reductions. We've started discussing. Of course, even at the level of the LDC, we know deep in our hearts that we cannot get this as rosy as we want. Just to come today, one cup, we agree and discuss and get it 100% done. It has never happened in the past. So why do we think it's going to happen in one cup? Yes, it's a joke, but again, it's a good start. Yes, it's a failure, but for me, it's a good start. Looking at the historic trend of decisions and agreements being reached. Like the loss and damage, it has been taking so many years before we agreed. We only agreed to the loss and damage last year COP. Even though still now we are unable to put the right financing to support the implementation of the loss and damage, but we have agreed that let it be formed, which has taken too long. So again, here we are also putting our decision on the table. From 1 billion to 1.3 trillion. I think I would not say we have been over ambitious. That's the right thing. That is what science has put or guided us to do. So we started the negotiations. We were expecting at least close to the developing countries. Their figure was 600 to be, because in this 1.3 trillion, we had two categories. The one category is for the mobilization. That's the public finance rather, and the mobilizations, both public and the mobilization. But here, we are saying that to mobilize the least developed countries divided this into two. 900 billion for purely public funds to go on the Grand Line, and the 400 to go on the mobilization, incorporating other innovative climate financings, maybe bringing in the multilaterals and the other development partners in terms of the banks to also chip in and see how best we can get it innovative in getting the 400 billion. So it was not all to say the 100 trillion must be in the one basket, but it was divided into different categories. Here I want to say we were expecting, at least reasonably enough, for them to move at least a little bit closer to the 900 billion and then call it public finance. For me, as far as I'm concerned, and the Gambia specific, the 300 billion, what has even made it a failure for us, is not even the quantum. They could have maintained even less than 300 billion. But the 100 billion categorically failed because there was no clear definition of climate finance. Because we have seen them putting in loans. More than 60% of this 100 billion, as they have said it was achieved sometime in 2022, went into loans. Why should we, and then developing countries taking this as a loan, why should we foot the bill of a problem that we have never been part of? This is our position. So this is what we are saying. So it has been confusing. You bring a loan, and the loan is put under the global body of climate finance, and you ask us to finance it by taking loan, making us sink deeper into the level of poverty, and even diverting our attention in terms of other development needs to climate change. That's not only, yes, it is critical, it is important, we need to solve the problem, and we have to, it's not a matter of choice. But again, we also have other development things to do. We have our schools educated, people need to be educated. People need to also get good health care. We've seen COVID-19 when it came. We are all scared to the death. So these are things that we also have to fix. So we have so many infrastructure. So but then what we are saying, even within these 300 billion, they have maneuvered within it not to define the access, the access mechanism, which has been also some of the critical failures of the 100 billion. Access is very important. And that is where I will take you back to the red lines of the least developed countries. Our red lines was to say that let them define climate finance so that we would know what are we taking. Is this grant, is it climate finance or not? If it's not climate finance, then we cannot take grants for climate finance. It has to be specified from the onset. But not to give us, put it, embed it somewhere, then you just put it and then now count it out on a climate finance. There is no accountability. It also lacks transparency. So we want things to be transparent. We want it to be accountable. That can only be done if we have a clear definition that we will know, you know, and everybody knows, and we all agree that this is the definition.
So, Honorable Minister, was this concern put to them?
Yes, that's why where I was coming to. The least developed countries have their red lines, because I was more focused handling the ministerial session of the least developed countries after being found in catch-22 now. Where should I put my weight on? So I later decided to support the least developed, even though I was attending meetings with the developed countries and also supporting them. But at the end, I thought I have to be on one side. We had our red lines. Among this is critical to say that we don't want to struggle in accessing finance. We want to be put in our own corner where our capabilities, our constraint wouldn't be compromised. So we want us to have a specific allocation for the least developed countries. And there we are saying 30%, but in the actual figure is 220 billion for the least developed countries. Because we are teaming up with the SEEDS, that is small island developing states, and they will be allocated 39 billion. So this is what we had. So when we are discussing, we said, look, because the first text that came said they're going to give 250 billion every year towards 2035. That was the first text. So now we open up another negotiation. Now we are strategizing. We are already saying that the least developed countries alone should be given a basket, yearly basket of 220 billion. And then they are coming up with a quantum figure, global figure for all, 250. So
for global.
For global figure, that was the first text. So we are like, okay, now, because if you put our figure with the 39, it's going to be far above the 250. That is there for the entire quantum. So we are like, okay, now let's percentage it. In case they come, because it's a negotiation, in case they come closer to our figure or a little above, we'll be able to now peg our own basket to at least 30% or 20%. So now we came up with the percentage mechanism. But even with that, that was failed in the final text. Because we are saying that we have not been accessing climate finance. If it comes, Gambia, within the developing countries, we have categorized the least developed countries who have been the most vulnerable, the most constrained in terms of the technical capacity to access, prepare bankable projects, and also even access the funding. So it's as if we are now fighting with other countries within the same category of developing countries, but they have most powers. They are bigger countries. They are now even graduating from they are now being classified to graduate from developing countries to developed countries.
To access that finance.
So then now, if you want to put us into that, to now struggle with other countries who have the muscles to get through their way to access this climate finance, we'll be left there constrained. So we are saying, now give us our own package. Within our own levels, least developed countries, now will struggle to get this climate finance. It's only for us. Now you are now going to reduce our vulnerability in terms of accessing climate finance. That has been our red lines, which they have crossed. Which they have crossed. And then we also mentioned that we have to understand that public finance should take the lead. It's also one of our red lines. Because we don't want, in an instance, that responsibilities will not come by. Because if you don't clearly put public finance to take the lead, at my own level, I analyze this to say that what has been the key leading factor to climate change is the fossil fuel and the industrialization of countries. So this has been done at their own advantage to develop their countries for public interest. So now that if the gain has been spent on public interest, now let public funding also be used to also finance the climate mitigations and adaptations and loss and damage. That's our position. So if you want to put it, no, it's going to be private and now it's going to be open to everybody to chip in, we are not clear as to who is going to fund it. We are not clear. So we want it to be very clear. The terms and conditions needs to be very clear. This has been lacking in this text. But as I mentioned initially, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's not a bad start, or let me call it a worse start. We have started the talking. And I hope that now that we have the fire has started at least burning, we will now start to feel the heat that we have to be reasonable, we have to be genuine, we have to be authentic, and we have to lead to action. And we cannot do that if we are not sincere in what we are supposed to do. We cannot meet every COP. In one of my meetings with one of the countries, the key countries, EU or UK, I mentioned this. If, I think it was the Secretary General of the UNGA, I told them that if it was not for the sake that we want to join the solidarity platform and make sure that, because if we don't come to discuss, we will not be able to reach decisions. If Gambia said they're not going to attend, every other country said they're not going to attend, who is going to negotiate? Who is going to discuss? What are we going to now discuss to lead us to something else? So we are coming here to put our words across. But look, we are all struggling financially. To come to COP is very expensive. So we could have used that money to plow back into our economy if we are not going to get any results. But we are here to show solidarity and understand that climate change actions is everybody's business, no matter your level. So therefore we have to team up. We have to show that we have to go and talk. The table is open, and the highest table to discuss this is at the level of COP. So we cannot say that Gambia is not going to go because we are not contributing, we are not getting funding. If you don't talk, how can you agree?
Absolutely.
You have to go and discuss so that you can agree. You have to show yourself that you have at least a target to meet. Engage with them, discuss with them. If they don't listen to you, as they have not been listening, but then one day they will listen to you. And we hope that as we move forward, they will realize that, look, climate change is a matter of must. The finance has to come our way. And then it cannot happen by those who have not been the offenders to foot the bill.
That's true. What are the biggest contributors, saying, when it comes to climate finance, their contribution?
Their contributions, specifically, they're also teaming up. They're coming up as a group, and they're very strong. I know the contributor base has been something that we don't want to be a part of it. Within the developing countries who have been the leading advocates to increase the quantum, and also some of the other key challenges to be fixed include countries that they think are also new emitters, and then that is not going well with them. For them, in as much as they have been the historic emitters, we have new emitters. We don't want to be part of that. Because if you want us to take the discussion on whether China should be developed country or not developing countries, that's not part of our mandate. It's not for us. If they want to discuss it, that should be in another different forum and another. But so long as we have China as part of the developing countries, we have Saudi Arabia and other countries, we are discussing along that line. Yes, we have seen UAE, who has taken the lead to support financing. And China also is supporting financing. But for them, technically, if these people are still part of the developing countries and the pledges have been made to support the least developed countries, technically they still have the right to access those fundings. And technically, and they should need access because they're also new historic emitters or new emitters, and then they are term classified as the historic emitters.
Okay.
So for them, they just want to bulk it all to say emitters. I know it's politics, and no one will dispute that politics has been definitely spearheading the discussions and taking the driving force in having us land. So we agree to that. But as developing countries, least developing countries, or a country, the Gambia, we don't want to be good. We don't go that line. We are teaming up with China and other developing countries, so long as they have been tagged as developing countries. If they want to remove them from developing countries, another segment of discussion should go, which we are not part of.
Okay.
I know it's important to understand that within the quantum, there is also voluntary contribution that needs to come. So counting the voluntary contributions alongside the main quantum was what we did not agree. The voluntary contributions can come. For example, China does their voluntary contributions. UAE, Saudis, and others do their voluntary contributions, which they want to put under the main quantum. We are saying that hence they are classified as developing countries. If they want to do their voluntary contributions, yes, it can be put aside and support climate change actions, but to be specific and to make sure that we have the level of ambition that we need, we need to be very clear. The text needs to be very clear in black and white to indicate the quantum and also who are the contributor base. It has been very, very difficult to put our way in, but I think we hope sooner or later senses will fall back and we will all agree that climate financing is the only thing that we need to get action to the 1.5
So
degree
let's move on to this. How does the Gambia plan to meet its climate target discussed at the COP29?
As far as we are concerned, we have our NDC, and the NDC's implementation plan has already been prepared. We are calling for 268 million yearly. That's what we're calling for. We understand that it's not only through even COP or the main quantum that you can get fundings. As we are now, we are getting the Life AR support, which has been led by the United Kingdom government and some of the EU partners. Gambia is already benefiting as the front runners, and it is an adaptation fundings. Our main challenge with this COP is because they are putting more interest in financing mitigation, not adaptation, and the loss and damage. The reason being that for them, as far as we are concerned, adaptation is more of supporting to build stronger resilience, and it will now finance your developments. Because if you want to put stronger resilience, as we have under our LDC, transportation infrastructure is critical under our NDC. Waste management is also critical. And we also have energy. The infrastructure on renewable energy is also very critical. We also have in agriculture and land use, climate change is also critical. All these things, if you want to achieve them maximally, it has to be pegged under adaptation. And within the adaptation as well, in as much as mitigation is very critical, but adaptation will support us along the line. Whilst we are able to achieve our climate change actions, we are also to develop along the line. Because if you are able to build your infrastructure to a resilient level to withstand the climate change, then you are also able to also enhance your development. because road infrastructure is definitely critical. So you'll be killing two birds with one stone. You are moving on a development path, but you're also making sure that you're building your resilience towards climate change. So that is what adaptation specifically will do. So we are saying that, and also for adaptation also, if you do well in adaptation, you will have little to do on loss and damage. Because you only counted the loss because of something has happened. Those are the consequences of climate change. So when we do well in adaptation, alongside balancing this with also mitigation, which we also agree, we will be able to reduce the cost of loss and damage. But loss and damage has already been in court, and the secretary has already been set. It needs to be financed. Because as we say, in 2022 rainy season has cost the Gambia somewhere around $82 million only. What is on the surface? Because some records are not still visible. But on the surface, it has cost the Gambia 82 million. So imagine 82 million from our budget without no plan, when even our own budget is not sufficient to even handle our internal needs, let alone to put again other crises of climate change. So it's not fair to use 82 million just without plan on your budget to spend on climate change, a consequence that you have not been part of. Gambia contributed only 0.01%, and the least developed countries around 3.3%. So all of us put together, all this put together, is very insignificant to climate change. So those who have cost more than 80 to 90% of the consequences should foot the bill.
Absolutely.
That's climate justice.
Absolutely.
So we are saying adaptation should be given the right attention it deserves in terms of financing, so that we'll be able to at least enhance, achieve our SDGs, alongside also mitigate climate actions and build our resilience for today's and future generations, which has not been clearly welcomed by the developing countries.
Did we secure any climate finance, commitment at the COP29? Did we secure anything like that?
No, usually those are at the bilateral levels. But to secure climate finance, somebody asked me at BBC, I know you are expecting to go home with money. I said, of course, we would have loved to go home with at least as it should be, 268 million to finance our yearly climate NDC implementation plan. That is our expectation. But it doesn't work like that. It's where we're going to negotiate as a block. The finance, what we discuss is not only for the Gambia. Is the Gambia included in other interests? Then we team up to discuss about what is going to happen. Then the finance come where we're going to access this financing from that quantum.
Okay.
But it's not to say that now Gambia is going to get this one. For example, each country be given their own package to say this is what you're going to go with for.
Okay.
Well, it happens at COP when you negotiate individually. Like the COP before 2027 COP, we agreed with the Global Shield, and we were able to at least build partnership, and then if possible things goes right, we'll be able to access around $20 million. So at COP you negotiate, maybe you do your bilateral to discuss, but at the global level, it's not for an envelope to be given to you to come. You'll be extremely lucky to have an envelope to come home with. But as far as I know, we lobby for the global quantum to come, so they will be able, in this global quantum, we're also calculating our 268 million to be part of the global quantum. So if it is approved now, individually all countries have their NDCs, it has been costed. So from that quantum now, each country already has their costed. That's what we do. It's a global cost that includes the Gambia's NDC. So if we agree, then the Gambia's NDC is also part of that agreement. Now we can access, put our proposals to access those funding to also implement our NDCs.
Okay.
That is how it happens.
All right, Mr. Bush.
You said, was it last year we spent how many million?
Gambia, $88 million.
No, we did not spend. The last year, 2022 disaster that happened, when it was costed.
Yes, it was costed at that.
It was costed at 82 by the World Bank and other support partners. When the technical cost was done, that is how much Gambia has lost. So that is part of the loss and damage.
Okay, yeah.
Because we've already lost that.
Absolutely. No, what I'm trying to get at here is that I wonder, there are all these amounts being bandied about. How much money have we been getting from these international agencies so far for us to deal with our local problems? We know that we get these floods once in a while. We suffer the consequences. We talk about erosion all the time, deforestation. How much money has been coming from outside and we're spending on our local problems?
Thank you. On the global fund, on the global figure for the Gambia specifically, this was also asked by when I was on my interview with West Coast Radio, and I consulted the technical team. This is a figure that is difficult to come by. We are still struggling to put together our data, and then because not only the data is scattered, transparency is lacking. Transparency is lacking, accountability is lacking. As I told you, there is no proper definition of climate finance. So this is making it very difficult for us to account on a global figure specifically, accurately, to say this is what the Gambia has collected or been benefiting from climate change. I asked the Director of Climate Change, who is not only representing the Gambia but the entire LDC on this figure, and she responded to say that we are still struggling to get this figure, this global figure right. Because if we want to say one figure, we'll miss out. Noting that some of these development partners, support partners, don't only channel through government. They go to NGOs, they go to other agencies, they go to local organizations, and then maybe implement their climate change activities with them. You have in the university run, it is scattered. So that's why we want to put everything together. We have already having the secretariat, the climate change finance secretariat, to now handle matters of financing. And then we have to come up with the policy to say that if you want to finance climate change, it has to go through a channel. Even if you are going to give it to X, but let the process go through a channel, then it will be recorded, then you channel it through the X. But if you independently work with each and everyone, depending on who you think you can work with, without getting through the right channel, the government, as per se, the ministry, the Minister of Finance, you're leaving this accountability very difficult. But we are now working also with our reporting mechanism, the MRV, where you call monitoring and reporting verification. Under the Canadian government is supporting this to make sure that at least we have a clear mechanism and also monitoring and verification system to be able to account for and track all climate change financing. This is on the plan and it's already under implementation. But also coming up with the climate check by the Minister of Finance is a very welcome and a very good position, not only to track climate finance that comes our way, but also to be able to strategically support the Gambia in being able to win and also put forward to access climate finance directly. There is, you have to be able to be recognized at international level to be accredited to access climate finance directly. So as we are talking about, we've been hinting that GAMWorks is working towards that to get it. But the government needs to be at least accredited to access climate finance. The process has already been started. We've sent our application to get climate finance channeled through the governments, so that at least now, instead of going to UNDP, going to somewhere, government now can receive it. Because we even seen these challenges. When these bodies take climate finance on our behalf, it reduces. They take percentage. Sometimes even, and they dictate even how you spend it. So at the end, by the time you know, even 50% has already disappeared in thin air. We have seen that. So we are saying that if it goes through government, even if government is going to charge the cost of managing it, it's still government. It's still going to go to government. But if other multilateral or other agencies take this, it goes through their own financing of own, indirectly creating employment for them, for supporting their own economy, and then even now claiming that you have given Gambia 10 million, when actually it's only 5 million that has been spent at the local level because of the conditions attached to it. And I'll come to this to say that in as much as we have been thinking that it didn't go our way, and there are challenges, but some of the challenges are also internal. I was discussing with one of the countries on why, and then this subject came, which professionally they don't mention outright, but they will say it indirectly, and then of course it's for you to be able to pick up the bits and pieces and understand what they're saying. That we need to also spend this financing wisely. When monies come our way, imagine from inception to date, the monies that not only the Gambia, least developed countries has received in terms of support. One bit is the unclarity and also the other loopholes in conditioning the climate finance. That one is a challenge, which is based on the conditions. For example, you have in this climate finance comment, in which you're saying that 10% has to go to consultancies. And this international consultants should be recruited outside the Gambia. You already sending our money, 10% has already gone outside our box. And even procurement, conditioning that the procurement, even for vehicle, need to be bought, you're giving us brand that we don't have in the Gambia. So that means you're saying that it has to go through your market. And even if the brand is here, you're conditioning us which brand to buy, that is your own brand to buy inside that project. So some of the conditions attached, and even condition that it has to be capacity building, training. For me, yes, we need capacity building, we need training. But why should almost 60% be spent on training and capacity building? What is the actual that we need to attain in this project? Let's focus on that. So the way some of the projects have been designed, they're not meant to actually achieve the actual results. Indirectly, it's only the word that we are hearing. You have given Gambia 50 million. But actual sense, if you look at it critically, analyze it critically, we are receiving actually less than 50%.
50%, yeah.
But that's the project design, where we have to be ready to make sure that we are able to counter and negotiate very well during the designing process and before we sign these contracts. But again, the loopholes also comes here. Accountability at even national levels. If these monies are given to us, we need to spend it wisely. What is not much must be given the wise look. So this is here it comes. If we are giving monies, we need to be honest how we spend it. We need to make sure that at least general interest surpasses individual interest. It should come to benefit the actual beneficiaries. For example, if a project is coming to benefit, there was a study that was done some time back that says only 10% benefit the actual beneficiaries. So where is the 90% going? Maybe 50% is going back to the donors. 40% is being mingling around fat salaries, allowances, trainings, per diems, vehicles, all spent on that implementation plan. You're going to implement, you're going to give maybe something to the communities. The entire budget for that's going to the communities about maybe $20. And you're using $50 to finance your process, administrative process, going per diem, vehicles, fuels, to go and disburse the $20. You see what I'm saying? So this doesn't make sense. And that is where we have to now go back to the drawing board and see what we can do better with these resources. They're very scarce. They're not coming our way. We don't have it. If they're coming as donor partners, let's try to make sure that we are able to maximize how we get to the actual needs and also what is our main target. I will call it to this. The Life AR is coming up with a very brilliant mechanism. And now they're changing it to 30-70. 30% is going to be used as the implementation process, that's the administrative cost. And 70% must go to the beneficiary, that's the community, the local people.
Absolutely.
So this is now, changes have been made. Even the local, under the UNF, the United Nations facility, the UNCDF rather, they came up with this mechanism, the process, to see that at least we implement at the local level, enhance local capacity by making sure that at least most of the funds is being spent on the local people rather than on implementation of the project. These are all new things that are coming up and which generally we all have to buy in, making sure that we negotiate very well to reduce the leakages that are going outside the boundaries of the country in terms of experts outside the country and in terms of also some of the conditions outside the countries, and also getting government to now be an accredited entity to access this climate finance direct from the donors, rather than going to another party that will now bring it to, and then taking some part of the money that leaks out from us, creating employment to another also country, not even our country.
Yes. So, Mr. Mamadou Mbodj, I think we've already exhausted. I mean, in fact, we've extended the time more than, the time that she's supposed to. I mean, I think you need to pay her for that. You need to pay her for that.
And there's really so much to talk about in this area. That was just a drop in the ocean, wasn't it?
Yes. I also want to conclude to say that we, on the financing, we having some donor partners who are supporting us. Like the World Bank is already giving us 45 million for 5 years to finance the
Okay.
West Africa Resilience, Coastal Resilience Project. That's the popular work that you have been hearing, and is the Kotu stream. So by the time we finish with the Kotu stream, I think we will see a great impact. And the implementation plan has already been, is already working fine now. The project is already on its proper stages to implement the project. And so many structures has already been put forward. We're looking forward to build the resilience of the entire greater Banjul area, from Kotu to all the connecting streams that are connected to the Kotu, which is a critical stumbling block in terms of managing floods in the greater Banjul area. So that is a very good support from the World Bank. Among others, also we having the EU coming up to support waste management, supporting with a sanitary landfill, which has been lacking. We understand that when we collect waste, we are discriminating, dumping them, and the way we are managing it is not sustainable. It's not also environmentally friendly. So all these things are support that are coming our way. The Life AR, as I mentioned, and even the European Union is also coming up, and we're also having the adaptation finance that is under the ecosystem, which has been supported also by the AFD.
Okay.
So supports are coming our way, but we are still ready. Now we're having the climate change finance under the Ministry of Finance to help us aggressively move into the lobbying process, designing bankable project proposals within our NDCs to access this 268 million. We having also, UNEP has appointed a support advisor to guide on this climate finance access, and also both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Environment. He's an expert in climate. That's the Bubu Pate Jalo, who is an expert in climate change. He has worked in this. He is the one, I think, who has attended all the COP so far. I think missing only 3. So 20-something years in the climate change field. He's very versatile in this, and they're supporting us to get access to climate finance. All countries need to be aggressive. I think that is the way forward. We need to make sure that we do our best to lobby our way out.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for coming on the program. And, you know, I think we got an insight of what was discussed at the COP29 in Azerbaijan. And we hope and pray all these commitments are implemented. And
the bureaucratic matrix that is making everything difficult with this COP. It's unbelievable.
The politics.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for coming, and we hope to engage you more in the future. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
So we'll be right back after the short break.
Gambia, are you ready to party?
Get ready for the biggest celebration of the year.
It's Q Carnival at Q City. This December 31st, we're taking it to the next level.
From 5 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., Q City kicks things off with a vibrant cultural and family fun festival, perfect for all ages.
Shop till you drop at the marketplace. Open from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Vendors, grab your stall for just $2,000.
Indulge in a classic gala dinner from 7 p.m. to midnight. Come hungry, leave happy.
Couples, this one's for you. Enjoy a romantic movie and dinner night from 9 p.m. to midnight.
And then when the clock strikes 12, the stage explodes with a live music concert from midnight to 5 a.m. The hottest artists and DJs will keep you dancing till dawn.
Don't miss out. Mark your calendars and join Q Carnival, the ultimate New Year's Eve celebration at Q City.
Q Money and Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal now. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Q-Money e Orange Money Johnny weɓini nuldugol mbuɗi mi yetoma joni hiɗa wawi nuldude mbuɗi iwra ko Gambia ɗo yaha Sénégal e Q-Money wallet ma on eyyi ko honno wonɗa e fadde mi yetoma udduto Q-Money account ma on joni fuɗɗoɗa nuldude mbuɗi e teriɓe ma rewa ɗon ka Orange Money nder Sénégal fi heɓugol hen ko laaɓi hiɗa wawi nuldude Q-Money customer care e 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe ɗum no yaadi e sartaji. Q-Money anin Orange Money ye bulodi nyola pour ka kori kio sone yandi ka bonan Gambia.
We are back. You are watching QTV This Morning. I am Ibrahim Balde. And in the studios, I'm with Mr. Momodu Mboj. Mr. Mboj, it's like there are a lot of politics, I mean, happening, you know, when it comes to the COPs. I mean, remember, the COP 27 in the UK, in Glasgow, I mean, most of these contributors refuse to attend certain sittings. And here they're talking about climate finance. You know, accessing the finance, you have a lot of bureaucratic, I mean, steps that should be taken to access certain finance. I am not even confident whether we would be able to access the climate finance easily.
The thing is, when people talk about, let's put the politics out, my first question is, how deep on earth can you possibly do that? Because you have political entities meeting to make discussions. So politics is really at the very heart of it. You're never going to get that out of the way. Maybe what you want is this political entities to be committed, to have that climate commitment, as it were, to change things, which is a different thing to talk about altogether. So this is really what our problem is. Look at us, poor Gambia, we hardly emit anything, but we stand to lose so much, so many of the LDCs, the least developed countries. This is really what our problem is. And then for us to find solutions, of course, you need ideas, but in order to implement them, you need the money. And this is where really we are at the mercy of the developed countries. I'm going to be discussed with the minister. She talked about the contributor base. Yes, I mean, the way they defined a developing nation, they did that way back in the UN framework, 1992. That was how they defined developed country in a certain way. But after 30 years, they're coming back and say, hey, look at China now. They are one of the greatest emitters. And economically, they're sort of doing well. You know, they've been growing. Look at Saudi, look at UAE. You have these petrostates. So shouldn't they be part of the contributors? That is a discussion.
Exactly. And Minister also mentioned something. Should China be categorized under developing or developed you know, countries? I mean, imagine China being categorized under developing countries.
Exactly. So this is the thing. They're going to need to revise. That's what the so-called developed countries are saying. Let's review our 1992 definition of what a developed country is, so that we can widen the base of the contributors. That we'll see how they do with that. But we are really in deep problem. For the past few years, we've seen what floods been doing to especially when you go to the Horn of Africa, all over Africa, and loss of lives and people being put into very difficult, tragic circumstances. This will continue while we go on discussing and talking and bandying about numbers that we are not giving. You have a lot of pledges, we'll do 300 billion, even that, we'll do this, we'll do that. Not much really coming from the COP pledges, as it were. Maybe we are getting help, as the minister said, the bilateral agreements that's giving us help, but sort of from these COP funds. It seems as if we're not having much, but meanwhile, we'll continue to suffer. Who knows what next, be it flood or drought, these extreme weather conditions. Africa is suffering that a lot.
It's definitely. And when you look at our contribution quantity, I mean, Minister mentioned it here, it's in fact less than 2%.
The emission 0.01, we know that we're not emitting much. The whole of the continent, or even least developed countries, really, when you go way back, when we're talking about this climate change, the contribution is negligible. But the consequences on you are massive, they're huge. This is the unfairness about it all. So now we talk about climate justice, but this is the problem. Where is the honest cop to enforce certain rules? What are the rules? So it will be subject to sort of power. In the end, you're not going to get climate justice. How? Because of, you know, the powers that be. If they do not want to do it, they're not going to do it. And they have the money. They're the ones that to give you the money. So you don't have sort of like an honest cop, as they say, to really determine these things. It just depends on what they want to do.
Absolutely. Climate change, it's... well, for me, I'm just scared. I mean, let this discussion not continue. At some point, they will oversight the purpose of the climate, conference. At some point, you keep dragging certain things. Certain negotiations have been dragged for a very long time. Remember, when the COP started until today, COP 29, very soon we'll go to COP 30. You know, at some point, the conversations are still dragging, Mr. Mboj.
That's it. And some would ask, yes, you've had these 29 editions. What have you achieved, really? You know what I mean? Some people would be asking that, and I'm sure you will also have the cynical views that, no, they haven't really achieved much. But I think that just by creating the platform to discuss it, I think that's massive. That's a huge, huge achievement. And of course, to work out the details, given the facts of power, in politics you have to think about this asymmetry in power, which will determine really the pace and nature of agreements and discussions and that sort of thing. That will drag it on. But at least we have this platform. We recognize that we need to have it so that you can have a global approach to these things, which is a global problem. If it's a global problem, then you approach it in a global way. But again, it's slowing down because of different parties have different interests. Different powers want to emphasize one or two things that are different. It is very, very difficult to bring a group, and you can move only by consensus. In this, there's no such thing as,
absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
that is the thing.
That's very, very difficult, yes.
You know, I was wondering, why not you give Gambia their own package? You give Senegal, give Morocco, give another country their package.
It is not, I don't think, it's not a matter of, we are as a group, we can't agree. Okay, let's vote on it. When you win, we move on. Yeah, you got to have everybody agree, otherwise it wouldn't work. So this is really what the problem is.
So we'll be right back after this break. Then Mr. Adedrame will join us for the newspaper review. We have a lot to review. Yeah, so we'll be back.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte, rifled in! Out.
Did you know you can buy cash power using QMoney wallet absolutely free up to 30,000 $. Use our app or dial 323 hash and select Q Power.
Stories.
Choose register meter. Enter your meter number. Dial *323 hash and follow these simple steps. Number 1, select option 3 for Q Power. Number 2, choose option 1 to buy any amount of Q Power. Enjoy free QCell airtime every time you cash in to purchase Q Power. For any inquiries, call 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalben.
We are back. You are watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Balde. Now let's move on to some of the stories making headlines. And we have Mr. Adedrame here. And we miss Mr. Adedrame on this platform, Mr. Ade. I mean, it's good to have you here again.
It's good to be here, albeit briefly. And I notice you're Ibrahim Balde today. You're not Ibrahim Balde.
Well, I tried for Aliu to change my name tag, but he keeps putting Ibrahim Balde. So I said I should go by Ibrahim Balde.
Okay, cool. Let's
All right, so Ghana's former president, John, how do they call him? Dramani Mahama? They call him Dramani?
No, Dramani.
Is he your brother, Mr. Ade? Has emerged victorious in the country's presidential election following consistent defeat by his main opponent, Vice President Mahmoudou Bawumia.
Bawumia conceded. He conceded defeat, even though the official results are not out yet. But based on the provisional results and the results from his own party that they've collated, he's done the honorable thing. Very unusual, not just in Africa, but around the world. We remember President Trump, even though he's going back for a second term, has still not conceded that he lost the previous election. so it's not just in Africa that you have people disputing election results. But yes, they've already conceded Bawumia, and yeah, people are rejoicing. But I think there's a kind of reality check that is coming, because there's one headline from the Africa Report today which says a new government, but the same old challenges. They're going to have to deal with what's there, and I think there's a kind of unrealistic expectation that somehow they're going to solve all the economic problems, which for them it was all about the economy this time mainly, but the turnout was also quite low. So it seems that the ruling party, many of their members, rather than voting for the opposition, decided not to vote at all, not to turn up at all. And so that's...
so let's take...
Just before the elections, that is it, most people who were polled, you had surveys, and they all complained about the economies, the cost of living crisis that's really been sinking all these political parties, all these presidential candidates across the country.
Africa.
Well, I mean, the challenges, I mean, at some point, the way forward for Ghana, when you look at their economic recovery and, of course, political unity at some point. I think there are a lot of challenges that the president...
The incoming one has to deal with. And they only have a 4-year term as well. So, some countries have 5 years. Theirs is 4. How much can you achieve? And one of the things, one of the phrases that people have been saying is that, in fact, somebody was mentioning it in the office, you can't eat roads and bridges. So there's been a lot of infrastructural development, but that's part of development, roads and bridges stimulate economic activity, so they're not to be dismissed. Because I've heard people doing the same here. And, you only have to go back to when we didn't have decent roads in some areas, the challenges we had, and those challenges have gone in areas where we've got decent roads now. So people tend to dismiss them or take them for granted very, very quickly, as if they don't mean anything. They mean a lot. And I think Ghanaians are about to discover that those who are sneering are saying, oh, you can't eat roads and bridges. But, it has definitely stimulated both social and economic activity.
Because the kind of economic conditions that you want, they depend on certain enabling, as it were, infrastructural base, as it were, them to create it. Yeah. So, really, yes.
Because you go to the countries, this is it, you go to the countries that we do admire, they've all got decent infrastructure. So, they're not a separate thing. They're part and parcel of the same development thing. And I guess it's one of the things that the president has noticed on this Meet the People tour. In many places, people have said, look, we've seen other places have got decent roads. When are we going to get decent roads? So, that's very much, it's global. It's not just an African thing. It's not just a Ghanaian or a Gambian thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So expelled Tumanjai wins case against PPP.
In fact, until I saw and heard the headline, I didn't realize she had been expelled.
I mean, it's I didn't even know there was sort of a burhaha between them.
so hopefully, I'm assuming when it says wins case, I don't know whether it went to court or whether the PPP had its own internal tribunal, but it seems that she's won her wish to be reinstated in the party. So, yeah. An interesting one.
Well, Tuma is known to be a very outspoken National Assembly member. We've seen her defending and also against certain bills.
Oh, I love that word, againsting.
Yes.
I'll have to make a note of that.
You'll have to add that on the lexicon.
I'll have to add it to the lexicon. One of your colleagues upstairs used to say, why are you always against me?
Against
And until she started using it, I'd never heard the phrase. But I've heard it again now. So we'll have to add it to the dictionary.
Interestingly, here we form our own words. I mean, at some point, they tend to go
I heard somebody on the radio this morning talk about uncertainty instead of uncertainty. And I thought, that's another one to go with, all the other ones.
So Tuma is a very outspoken National Assembly. And I'm not surprised she have a case with PPP. I mean.
And the funny thing about these is that, most people, if they want to leave a party, they will leave the party. They would rather leave of their own accord than be expelled. So if she's having some sort of friction between the party, it might not be a surprise if at some stage she leaves of her own accord rather than be booted out. So yeah.
Absolutely, and maybe she just refused to leave. So the sense of ownership, when you look at the history of the PPP,
that's right.
She's very much part of the family. As it were.
Yeah.
So nobody can expel me, to me. And you want to go to court, let's go to court.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. It's not quite that
it's not that simple
over here at all.
But that's an interesting one. Yeah. So what else is on the thing?
Banjul has the highest HIV infection rate
in the country, I presume. Yeah, not in the world.
In the country.
In the country. Yeah.
Well, at some point, there was a report that mentioned the CRR, the URR.
As having the highest rates.
Yes.
Okay.
And now we are seeing on the Point newspaper, Banjul.
Do they mean Banjul and Greater Banjul, or just Banjul?
Because
in terms of population,
Greater Banjul possibly.
It's probably Greater Banjul. Just because of the the sheer population.
Who did that study? I wonder who did the service.
The UNAIDS.
Okay, right. Yes. Because it was World AIDS Day on the 1st of December.
All right. Yes, 1st of December.
They did that study.
Yeah. So
well, KMC inaugurates multi-million Dalasi library complex. I mean,
we went there and we were impressed.
Videos of the library, and I was thinking about Mr. Ade and Mr. Butch.
I hope you saw them on the QTV news because we did a story on it.
I saw images and I was like, Mr. Ade would love this.
Absolutely, it's my thing. I grew up going to libraries, and of course now they're kind of updated. And this one also has a kind of language section where you can learn Pula Mandinka. It looks really nice, and I hope it stays that way, because we don't have a good reputation in terms of maintenance, and this has been funded by the EU, and it's definitely the first of its kind in the country. I mean, there's no other library close to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most places don't even have a library.
A kind of library for the digital age.
For the
that
digital
must be
that
that
right.
angle.
That's right. Yeah. And we use the dreaded phrase "state of the art," but it really is. It's got lots and lots of facilities and features, and I urge people to use it.
Digital
it's there. Let's utilize it. I hope people will make use of it.
The Gambia also was part of the 11th OMVG summit, and it ends on high note.
It ends on a high note because they are, in the communique that came out, they have lots of sort of ambitious targets for as soon as next year, that a lot of the connectivity that everybody's been waiting for will be achieved by next year. So I think that's the high note they're talking about. We had representatives from Guinea-Bissau, of course, from from Senegal. Ousmane Sonko was here, and His Excellency the President broke off from his Meet the People tour to host that conference, and then resumed the tour. I mean, they put a lot at stake, but they're very hopeful that connectivity is around the corner, because the big thing is about linking all the various grids that come from this Gambia River Basin project, which is what it is.
Yes, I mean, recently there's been a kind of, what can I call it, mild euphoria about what is to come, as it were. We've heard it from ministers and all the rest of it. We will see. It seems that we are near to something. I do not know what. Perhaps some milestone we do not know. So next year, what time, when, We've just been hearing
Well, this
OMBG
is
for
it,
such a long time.
Something that one of our colleagues who's on the Meet the People tour said to me on Saturday at the GPU Awards. He said the thing that has surprised him, he was on the tour last year, is that there's villages, like really, really small villages, that are now electrified. He said he said that for him has been the big takeaway from this tour. He said, and if you live in the Combos, because we kind of take it for granted, he said, but villages that they visited last year that did not have electricity, like really, really small villages, he said, and by next year, almost all of them will have. He really was impressed. Choi, our former colleague Choi, we were chatting about it because he was there on behalf of GRTS. And he said, he said for him that's been the big takeaway.
You know, and you know, like he mentioned, I mean, if you are in the greater Banjul area, you take it for granted. You don't know. For people like us who hailed from the provinces, we know how far and deep, I mean, certain villages are. And, you know, going back and seeing electric poles being installed at certain areas, that gives you a great feeling.
He said when they went to some villages and there were meetings at night and lights were on everywhere, it really kind of jolted him. And you know, he said it really left an impression on him at how fast things have happened from last year to this.
Exactly. Yeah, so Dabo says Gambia has a useless government. Yeah. That's the UDP.
Okay, I was going to say which Dabo.
Honorable lawyer Usenu Dabo.
When you're in opposition,
well, it's like the dad is sending shots to the sun again.
When you're in opposition, you have to justify why you're in opposition and why you deserve to be. So if he were to come out and say we have a useful government, that would make him and his party redundant. So it's what you would expect to hear from an opposition.
From an opposition. Exactly. So, I mean, that is what, when I saw this thing, I was like, no, it's an opposition statement.
But who knows, he might go on to justify it. But I'd be
so you have to know the reason why is it useless? The premise.
You know, because as I just mentioned, the people who are in those villages who have been electrified, they probably don't think it's useless. They might not
think it's useless.
So, but,
exactly. So, Gambian woman jailed for life in Dubai.
Oh.
She was apprehended with cocaine. 4 kilos of cocaine. You know, it's telling you how countries like the EU, countries like the UAE are taking, I mean, this matter very seriously.
If some countries take it even more seriously, because I just read over the weekend a Nigerian 30-year-old was executed in Thailand. Again, caught with, which he said somebody gave, look, if I'm going to Thailand, you're not even giving me an envelope. I'm sorry. So, but that was his defense, that somebody gave me something to take and I didn't know what was in it. But the court didn't believe me. He was hanged over the weekend. So
a Nigerian?
30-year-old Nigerian man.
Well, Mr. I want to understand, rights given to a country, I mean, to execute another country's citizen in your country. I mean, I find it very baffling.
Why, if you commit the crime in the country, where should you be executed?
Of course.
No, you committed the crime there, not in your own country.
We're locking them up. That's what the law says. Where the law says that I should execute you, I can execute you, I will do so. It's just the same logic.
Well, I was thinking
These are
about
just two different extremes.
Bilateral relation that you have with that country.
No. The criminal laws of a country apply to everybody.
Okay.
I mean, these are countries where...
Despite if you are citizen of that
citizen or no, once the crime is committed in that country tries you and the law takes its course. If the course says that you are to be executed, sadly, that is what happened. And the sad thing, because when I read the article, they mentioned about the numbers of Nigerians who've been executed there. And you wonder, why are they... It's such a dangerous thing to go there. These countries, they don't mess about when it comes to drug trafficking. You know, if you're caught, that's it. You're tried and you're found guilty, you're executed. So, you know, he was pleading that, you know, I didn't know what I was given and so on, but he was hanged.
Yeah, so Minister of Higher Education, Per Gomez, says government is neutral in UTG standoff.
Yeah, we've heard about strikes and protests and demos and what have you. Government is neutral. Interesting.
How are they neutral?
Yes, but you have governing council, you have other bodies that are dealing
with the thing.
Yes, maybe that's what you want. You really do not want the
want
government to be directly involved in these things. You want institutions to be able to run themselves well in a decent, orderly manner.
Well, that's
really.
right. You have a dispute. You have a dispute with the UTG. You don't necessarily have a dispute with the government
at all.
As such, what is the mechanism through which you can raise your concerns, your protests, and what have you. So
dispute resolution, mechanisms in place, absolutely, and then we all respect them.
If government got involved, people would say government is interfering.
Exactly.
So in a way, they can't win. Yeah.
Mr. Adedrame, thank you very much for reviewing the stories with us.
I'm glad I came and rescued the show from being
all about
COP29.
We are not getting the
show.
finance. At least if we can get one of the trillions. I mean, Minister mentioned billions.
Billions and trillions.
We asked for 1.3 trillion.
Trillion.
As Mr. Mboj said, these figures that are bandied about.
We haven't seen anything. They're just
fantasy
this
figures.
platform, we don't need the trillion. We only need the billions. Only 1 billion on the platform. Thank you, Mr. Mboj. Thank you very much. I will be back here tomorrow again for another edition. Inshallah. Mr. Adedrame, thank you very much for rescuing us.
I'm glad I was able to rescue the viewers from COP29.
Viewers, this is
terrible COP.
This is all we have until we come again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of our program. Do have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.